If you don't have urgency, you're not going anywhere. If you have impatience, you're going to trip and fall.
Hello and welcome to the Mindset and Self-Mastery Show. I'm your host, Nick McGowan. Today on the show, we have Eric Malka. Eric, how you doing today?
Good, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I think we're going to have a great conversation. We were already shooting the shit and having a good time with it, so it'll be fun. So why don't we get this kicked off? Why don't you tell us what you do for a living and what's one thing most people don't know about you that's maybe a little odd or bizarre?
So what do I do now is I'm an investor. I invest in early stage companies in the men's grooming and beauty category. I help founders achieve what I've was lucky enough to achieve in my own career by building my company called The Art of Shaving, which I sold in 2009. So helping founders try to do the same thing. And something weird about me, that's a tough one, man. I'm kind of, I'm not going to say I'm normal because nobody is normal, but I've lived in many different countries. I was born in North Africa. Grew up in Canada, lived in New York City, Miami. I've lived in Puerto Rico. I speak 3 languages. I've been around.
Some of that's a bit abnormal, not normal for people that just stay in a town or something. So I'm glad that you bring that up. That's something I talk to people about. Like even right now, we're recording this and I'm in Montana. I currently live in New Mexico and my partner and I travel throughout the summers and all of that. People listen, know about that stuff. But those that stay in their town and that are just kind of townies get stuck there. And They just only see the things that they see. And it's not like the 1800s anymore where like you're just in a town and you're stuck there and you can't really get out. Where now it's easier to get out. But I find that some people have a hard time just making that initial step to just move along. Like you told me that you got on a bus, ended up in New York, and then also had a knife at your throat a number of months later. So like, that's a fucking story right there,
I have friends that still live where we grew up, right? And their kids are going to the same school. And I don't look down on that. I think there's some beauty to it. It's just different strokes for different folks, right?
Sure.
I ran from that notion, right? I escaped that reality. But for other people, that's a beautiful thing where there's roots, there's family, there's consistency. Nothing wrong with that. It's just not my vibe.
Yeah. I think about how some people get stuck in a system of a thing. I grew up here. I went to school here. My family's here. All the systems are here that I'm used to. And sometimes it is totally this makes total sense and this is where I'm supposed to be. And that's a beautiful thing.
That's right. If that's what you want and that's what you get, that's fine. But if you want something else, but you don't have the courage because your mindset tells you that it's never going to happen, then I agree. That's a problem.
Man, think about it. If you never sat your ass on the Greyhound bus, what else wouldn't have happened? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, they say the first step is 90%, right? So I didn't have courage. I had desperation. So, I was desperate to get out of there, man. Between the brutal weather and my family dynamics and my community and, I quit school. My dad lost his job. My parents got divorced. My girlfriend broke up with me. I just wanted to get the hell out of that place. So, that desperation is maybe stronger than having big balls. But you also need some courage to actually go through with the thought of desperation, right?
Oh, yeah. It's interesting how there's a catalyst to everything, like the desperation was for you. I've had somebody on recently who talks specifically about courage and how a courageous moment changed everything for them. But it really takes us actually looking at that moment and not thinking like, well, that was a cool thing moving along in life, but actually expanding on it or breaking it apart a bit. So you've gone from traveling around, moving and all of that, but you also have had different companies. You help people with companies now. And truthfully, the reason why I wanted to have you on the show is because I know that the stories that I talk to different people about, just having casual conversation, when you actually get into deeper conversation with them, like, look, for a 2-3 year period, all I wanted was death. Or like, I had no idea what was going on and I just tried to keep myself going. And I thank God that I had therapy or whatever. Yeah. So I like to be able to find out, what did that look like? Because it's not a matter of like, cool, man, you're successful. You sold a company. Because you didn't just have the thought of it 2 days before and then go, fuck it, I'm going to sell this thing. So like, what were some of those pivotal moments going through that you can look at that like, those were changing moments?
Oh, there were many, but well, I never wanted to kill myself or by any means. I never dealt with serious mental issue. I've had traumas, but they're relative to my own experience. I know some people had it much, much worse than I ever did. I'll tell you an anecdote. I mean, I turned 40 years old and I had just sold my company for a nice amount of money. I had 2 beautiful baby boys. I had a beautiful, loving wife. I lived in a gorgeous place, in a beautiful city, friends. Everybody in my family was healthy. And I was miserable. I was miserable as a dog. I was still very anxious internally. And that was a big aha moment for me because I used to think all these things would make me happy and make my problems go away. It would fix, and I realized, wait a minute, if all these blessings that are incredible are not going to fill that hole in my, inside, nothing ever will on the outside. This is an inside job. I need to focus on this right now.
Yeah. It's important for us to talk about that stuff because I think it can be too easy for us to see either people on TV or social media or something like that and go, oh my God, look, they must have everything together. Even if that doesn't make sense, like subconsciously, we just think, oh, they look good. Like the people that are on social media, there are times where I have conversations with people. They're like, well, I think I want to become an influencer and show off my life and how I do these things. I'm like, well, cool. If you're going to do that, you should just have a camera up 24/7 so people can also see you crying in the bathroom because something didn't go your way or whatever, instead of just curating the rest.
I think successful people and famous people don't get empathy, right?
Yeah.
I remember everybody was telling me, oh, you're living the dream, man. You're living the dream. And it was true to a certain extent. It was my dream and it was the dream a lot of people have for themselves. But it made me cringe inside when I heard that because I didn't connect with that feeling, right?
Yeah.
I was extremely grateful for what I had, right? The gratefulness was there, but there was still anxiety, fear, sadness that I still hadn't dealt with, that needed to be dealt with. And I think as people pursue their dream and falsely believe that those dreams are going to resolve all these problems, I think that's really the fallacy, right? And I was lucky enough to achieve my dreams to have that curtain fall and see that it wasn't the answer to all my problems.
I don't know if I've heard of anybody, when they're being really honest, that hasn't had something like that. They've been super successful and they've made a lot of money, or they sold a company and like still didn't have the fulfillment. Yet people will still look at that and go, but they're not me. They don't have my problems. They don't have this. They don't have that. It's like trying to learn from somebody else's experience, but going, cool, I see that. Let me go fuck up and get punched in the face for myself because I don't fully believe it until I'm bloody. Being able to take from that. So what sort of things, as you walked through, even just mentally thinking through the stuff that you'd gone through, like what are some of those key things you talk to business owners about now that are in a startup phase, super passionate about what they're doing, but also need to get their head on straight with like a logical side of it, of like, you're still going to walk, you're going to get punched in the mouth, and here's how you handle those hits. What are some of those things that you've learned?
First of all, I've learned that nobody's achieved their dreams or high success without serious obstacles along the way. So you need to cultivate, resilience and grit. And I look for that in people that I work with, right? I want to make sure that they're they're not going to give up at the first sign of trouble, right? But more importantly, I think that to be successful as an entrepreneur, because this is the world I live in, the entrepreneurial world, I think you have to really be healthy, physically, healthy emotionally, spiritually, in every way you can. That's just going to not only make your odds higher of success, but you're going to enjoy the journey more. People around you are going to enjoy that journey more, and you're going to enjoy the fruits of your labor after that's over. I see too many entrepreneurs sacrificing seeing their kids grow up, their health, just for pursuing, their success. And I think that's a really dangerous trade-off.
Yeah. Think about the hustle culture. Everybody that was hustling, and like the more that you push and push and push and basically driving yourself to burnout, it's unhealthy. But
it is. But there's an age appropriate for that, right? Like you can't drink the same at 20 that you will at 50. Some people do, some people do. You can't take Michael Jordan at 22 and at 52 and he's the same player on the court. He's not. He's the same guy. So, there's a time that I don't, for me, it was my 20s were about learning. My 30s was about, reaping the rewards of what I had learned. And my 40s was really to hone my skills. And my 50s are about returning, right? Returning, being of service to others because I've been so blessed. So there's an age appropriate, you shouldn't be hustling that hard in your 60s. Unfortunately, some people have no choice, but you should know that there's a time that you have the most hustle energy, if you will.
Sure.
And that's the time you should utilize that energy.
So let's look at people, let's say people in their earlier mid 20s. There are some people that are designed to just completely generate, just continue to produce and do things. And by the end of the day, they need to go to bed just completely exhausted. Others are not like that. It's a smaller percentage of people because for the most part, most of us on the planet are generators of a sort. But the people that aren't that way, but see other people doing it and go, well, Jimmy and Johnny and Susie are going crazy and they're hustling like mad. And part of that is a systemic thing that they were raised to just drive yourself fucking batshit crazy and don't stop. And some of it might also be, I'm excited, I'm going to keep doing. But how do you work with those people differently? And really, how do you understand that about each of those?
I mean, everybody's different, man. And we all have our superpowers. It's about identifying that power, that that innate gift that you have, and really honing in on it and leveraging that, right? If you're trying to be something you're not, you're gonna fail. You can't be good at everything. A lot of times you need a partner to offset your weakness, or employees. You hire your weakness sometimes. But it's about understanding what you're really, 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 really good at, and really building on that innate strength to make it to be the best at that,
Yeah. So I don't want to get secret sauce from you or have you share the recipe of that sort of stuff. But let's say you're talking with somebody about that's trying to figure it out. What is it that I want to do? There's something in here, but I'm not sure. How would you help those people figure that stuff out?
Very simply, and it's very complicated. It's simple in theory, but hard to figure out, which is a lot of people try to figure out what they need to do next. And what they really need to be thinking about is where they want to go eventually, right? When you set sail to discover the world, you're not saying, okay, we're going to get out of the harbor and go left. You're saying, okay, I want to try to go to Antarctica. And then I chart approximately the best way to get there. And then there are things happening and you course correct along the way. So I think what I try to tell people is answer a simple question. What do you want? Where do you want to be in 10 years from now? Because those 3-year plans, they don't work, right? People think that success happens in 12 months or less. They're always going to be in the 12 months or less chase. It takes 10 to 20 years to really build anything. And where do you want to be in 10 years from now? That's enough of a runway that gives you time to figure it out and to get there. It's really being a treasure hunter at the end of the day, right? You have a bit of a business plan. You know there's a treasure at the end. You're not sure you're going to find it. And, the idea is what do you want? And when I ask that question, sometimes they know or they think they know. And sometimes they really have to dig deep and think about it. But once they figure out the answer to that, then it's what are you prepared to do? Or are you prepared to do everything it takes to get there? It's easy to say, I want to be an NFL quarterback, right? When I'm 10 years old. Oh, I want to be Tom Brady one day. Yeah, okay. That's your dream. Nobody's going to take that away. But you understand what it takes to get there. You understand the sacrifice, the hard work, the hours from not only you, but your parents are going to have to sacrifice, take you to practice and buy you equipment. And, so people, they either focus on the short term. They don't think really long term about what they want. And then when they think about the long term, they're not really understanding what it's going to require to get there. So that's where I really start to try to frame that, because there's an inverted correlation between your aspirations and the odds of achieving them, right? So if I just want to be a pretty good at, I want to just play amateur football, my chances of achieving that are pretty high if I have the athletic abilities and I have the time to do it. I should be okay. I'll play high school. Maybe I'll even play a little bit of college. But if I want to be like at the top of the game, the odds are completely different, right? I want to be a billionaire. The odds are, 0.0006%. But if I want to just have a nice little business that supports my family and I don't have to answer to anyone in my community, the odds are much, much, much greater. So that's really where my head goes when I try to guide people into understanding that.
Yeah. I really love that you talked about what do you want, not where do you want to be? Because I think a lot of times when people say, well, what's your 5-year, 10-year, where do you want to be in 5 or 10 years? I personally have always said, the fuck if I know. What I really want is freedom. And what I want is to be able to be myself and enjoy the things that are deep inside of me and find myself through that. But where do you want to be in 10 years? I don't know. I didn't think I was going to be in Montana in August of this year.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. That's cool because that's how life can work. But
that's
fact that you said,
hunter,
what do
right?
you want? Yeah, exactly. It's like a big fuck around and find out, but you got to go fuck around and find out.
Yeah, because it's not a linear, right? You have to know where you are and where you want to go. And then it's not a linear way to get there. Sometimes you have to go through to Montana to get to California,
Yeah.
You don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So that's how I look at things. That's how my life was. I always leaned in. People think I'm courageous or I take risks. I'm like, no, I had no plan B. And I was a little bit desperate, so, and I had nothing to lose. When you have nothing to lose, you're not risking anything.
Yeah. If the ships are burnt, I mean, you ain't get back on them. Like that's just not.
No. And when I started my company, I sold my car and I started with $12,000. I mean, I would have blown that in Vegas over the weekend. Right. So I wasn't risking much. That's really the logic I think of. Maybe I'm minimizing what I did, but I don't see it as. I think I took a lot more risks when my company was generating a lot of cash, and I doubled down to go big. Right, that was a risk, calculated risk. That's what entrepreneurs do. They calculate. Sometimes they calculate it poorly, but it was a calculated risk. But that was a risk.
You should learn after that calculation, yeah. And I don't think that's undercutting it or anything like that. It's easy for us to say none of it's linear, and people that are into their journey of just being an adult understand that most things aren't linear. But it can be really difficult when you're looking at just the immediacy of something right in front of your face. And it's hard to see what happens after that. So how do you keep yourself present throughout those moments? And how do you share with young entrepreneurs? Like, I get it. You're freaking out right now.
It's trusting the process. The analogy I use is the guy trying to break out of prison with a spoon. I'm going to dig a tunnel with a spoon, man. That sounds like a really impossible idea. But, the guy that starts chiseling at that wall, 3 months later of chipping, all of a sudden he's inside the wall. A year later, he's building a real tunnel. Eventually you chip at it, you're going to get somewhere, and it's about trusting the process. It's about not being impatient. It's about urgency, but not impatience.
That's easier said than done, obviously, and everything in each moment. It can be harder to go, well, I want this thing to be done now. I am Captain Impatient often.
But that's why we're here, you and I. We're trying to share that wisdom that we've learned. But if you don't have urgency, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
If you have impatience, you're going to trip and fall. That's what I advise in entrepreneurs, because I see that 99% of the failure rates is because of impatience. We're trying to launch too soon. We're trying to scale too fast. We're not ready to do it. I have this framework for startups called crawl, walk, run, and fly. And what I see when I analyze businesses is they're skipping these stages. That's where they get into trouble.
Yeah. And those stages are typically the most critical. Like, those are the big lessons that you need to learn to be able to get to the next level of things, and not 100%. Even a different level, but into the next conversation. Like, I think of having different meetings with people where it's like, if I didn't have these meetings with these people before, I certainly wouldn't have been able to talk about these things. And if I didn't fuck things up before, I wouldn't have been able to coach people on different things or share any wisdom because you don't have that.
Failure is part of the journey, for sure.
So it sounds like what you're saying is really taking it day by day and being present in those moments with that. But if you've got somebody who's like, I want to get ahead of these things, how do you help them see it? Because if they don't see it for themselves and they say, fuck, fine, Eric, I got it, but I want to do what they're doing, I want to be a lot faster. How do you then help them actually slow down a bit and take it step by step?
It's not my job to clip people's wings because, who am I to say that, the odds of somebody doing it in 5 years instead of 15 years are very low. But who am I to say that you're not the guy that's going to beat those odds?
Sure.
If you would have told me to slow down when I was 25, I would have told you to go fuck yourself. Mm-hmm. But you know what happened when I was 25? I failed miserably because I was trying to go too fast with my third company. And that taught me an invaluable lesson when I started my fourth company, which I started much slower. So whatever lessons you haven't learned from your parents, your community, your school, your government, life is going to teach them to you one way or another. So it's about learning. It's not about anything else than to learn. If you don't learn from your mistakes, you're never going to get ahead. If you're trying to think that you're not going to make mistakes and you're never going to fall on your face, you're going to be in for some bad surprises. It's about getting up, dusting yourself off, learning so that you don't make that mistake again. I'll make new mistakes, but I'm not going to make that one again. And keep forging ahead. That's the grit. That's the resilience. You keep, but if you get punched and you run away and you're like, all right, I'm done with this, then you weren't meant to be in that path anyways.
Yeah, I can see that. I can also see how some people, for the most part, can get stuck in this is the way I want it to be, instead of looking at the reality of something and saying, this is what it is now.
But that's a mindset. If you don't have the right mindset is everything. Mindset is everything. If you don't have the right mindset, if you're not open-minded, if you're not learning constantly, if you're not taking responsibility for everything that happens to you, you're never going to get anywhere. I mean, that's the recipe for disaster. So you're describing somebody with the wrong mindset that wasn't taught to have the right mindset. And there's nothing wrong with that as long as they, again, leverage who they are. Maybe that's somebody that should be an accountant, or somebody that should have a certainty in their career. because being an entrepreneur is a very
Uncertain.
uncomfortable thing.
Yeah.
Very
I don't know
uncomfortable.
where certainty is in being an entrepreneur. But then again, I talk to people that are like, well, I have a job and I'm certain. I'm like, I'm certain they could fire your ass tomorrow and you'd be looking for a new
Yeah,
job.
exactly.
So
This is
that's my
America,
certainty
buddy.
for you. Yeah, exactly.
Employment at will. I
not
know
even
it's a
just that.
scary proposition, man. You
Yeah.
work 30 years for a company and they give you a shitty watch and send you off and nobody. It's scary, man. To me, that was my motivator. First of all, I was not employable. I'm not
I
employable.
understand that.
I've held a job for 3 months. I got fired quickly. And that's just me. Just follow your path, right?
Yeah.
The guy that is the NFL hero is not the same guy as I am, who's an entrepreneur. It's not the same guy that's living, as we said in the beginning, in the same neighborhood they grew up in and their kids are growing up in. Those are two different guys. The problem happens when you're not doing what you should be doing, the path you want. If I want to just have a simple life, no problems, a nice job, build my career, save for my pension, no judgment. There's nothing wrong with having that life. As long as that's what you choose
Yeah.
for yourself.
Yeah. It's like purpose. I often talk about and think about our purpose and what we're here to do. And everybody's purpose is different. But the world will tell us that, well, if you're going to live a purposeful life, you need to be Oprah or Steve Jobs or do something crazy. When in all reality, your purpose may be to be the best dad or mom or
100%.
community leader. But it's understanding that about yourself.
Yeah, I've learned that changing the world means sometimes just changing one person's life. Impacting one person. That's enough. You don't have to be Mother Teresa, right? You don't have to, right? Then it becomes overwhelming. That was a problem I had when I was young. I was so ambitious that it was overwhelming, right? It's like there's this huge mountain to climb, 30,000 feet. And I'm at the base, with my shorts and I'm like, overwhelmed.
Yeah.
That's how I felt. And it's not until I realized all I have to do is just every day climb a bit of that mountain.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good visual too. So for the people that are on their path towards self-mastery, what's your advice to them?
My advice is focus on your wellness. Eat a healthy diet. Exercise, move. You don't have to be, a bodybuilder. Just move every day. Meditate or do something spiritual so that your emotional system, make sure you're dealing with any traumas or any insecurities or any fears that you may have that are holding you back. Work on your stress level, basically. That's what I'm saying. And what that does, in my opinion, is that it increases your chances of achieving whatever goals you have in life. And it makes the journey more enjoyable.
Very much so. And I appreciate that. And look, I appreciate your time today. I think this has been a great conversation. And Eric, before I let you go, where can people find you and where can they connect with you?
EricMalka.com. I'm not hard to find. You can Google The Art of Shaving, EricMalka.com, strategicbrandinvestments.com. I wrote a book called On the Razor's Edge. I'm online. You can find me.
Perfect. Well, man, I appreciate your time today. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, man.